Do you want to introduce who you are and what position you have here at UKAT?
My name is Fernandes. I am the lead therapist at UKAT London Clinic.
And how do you think we can begin to view mental health as a source of strength rather than something that holds us back?
I think it's important we need to shift the way we see mental health. A lot of the time we see mental health as a vulnerability. And instead of seeing that vulnerability as a weakness, more as a strength. That's what we're looking at. If I ask for help, it doesn't mean I'm weak. And we live in a society and a community sometimes when asking for help is frowned upon. And it's important that we shift that perspective. We can also look at challenges not as like negative things, but opportunities for growth. What's going on for me? This is affecting me. How can I move through this? What support do I need? We can also look at cultivating self-compassion, which is really important. We can be very hard on ourselves. We can be hard on others. And if we can start having compassion for ourselves, we can move forward and see it as more a positive thing, mental health.
What do you feel are some misconceptions you commonly encounter when people do talk about mental health?
A lot of the time people think it doesn't exist. I used to work at a university in North London for a while. And I remember I had students coming from various backgrounds. Some were Christian, some were Muslim, some were Jewish. And all of them actually said the same thing. My mom doesn't believe me, I'm depressed. My dad doesn't believe that I have anxiety. He just says I need to get up and go. He says I'm lazy. And this is the challenge. Suck it up, buttercup. This kind of thing where people think that it doesn't exist. Mental health isn't a thing, and it is a thing. And I think the more we speak about it, the more people out there, our leaders, people who are important out there, have some influence, we can talk about it and things can start to shift, which they are shifting at the moment.
You mentioned a common phrase there, like suck it up, buttercup, and that people don't, due to their religious backgrounds, don't believe, or due to different generational gaps, that they don't believe that someone can be depressed or suffer with anxiety. What role do you think language can play in reshaping how we view mental health? And are there words and phrases that we should stop using it, or we should begin to use when we start speaking to people who are a bit more vulnerable?
Yeah, people sometimes call people psycho, which is terrible. People say they suffer from depression. Some things we can say is, I have a mental health condition, for instance. Other things like suicide, people say, they've committed suicide. Instead of, you can say they died by suicide. And also the whole idea about language, the more we speak about it, the more we can destigmatize what's going on with mental health. We've seen some people love Prince Harry, some people don't like Prince Harry. However, he's done quite a good thing going on Oprah and speaking about his own mental health. He's part of the royal family, and when people like himself can speak about it openly, other people can see that and say, you know what, I actually think that something's going on for me as well, because I can see it's going on in him. And if he can admit that there's something, a challenge or there's a problem, then maybe I can do the same for myself and get some support. And
what sort of proactive steps can people take to maintain their mental health and keep a good, healthy balance for their mental health?
So stress is a big deal. It's a very big deal out there. And it affects everyone. A lot of people don't like to admit that they're stressed. So I work with a lot of business individuals, for instance. And are you stressed or not stressed? I'm all good. I'm sucking it up, buttercup. So dealing with stress, first thing to do, look at your diet. Eat at least 2 to 3 well-balanced meals a day, whatever that looks like. If you're not getting enough of a certain vitamin, maybe look at some supplementation. Exercise. Exercise is vitally important. If you can be in the gym or go for a brisk walk or do something 3 to 4 times a week, that's good. Depending on what your sleep schedule is like, 6 to 8 hours a night, very important. And looking at connections with other people. We live in a world, my phone is over there, okay? And phones are important. However, we get a lot of these connection needs from our phones, And what we really need to do, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, is that we need more connection with other people. You know, it's vitally important for people who have mental health issues and people who don't. You know, connection, it produces a lot of positive, like oxytocin, dopamine, those kind of chemicals in the body. And it's something that unfortunately we sort of lost sight of. You live in a big city, you know, I live in London, so you can lose that. So if you don't have that, it's vitally important just for overall mental health and well-being.
You mentioned connection is important and over the phone, and that those sort of connections can be fickle or they can be fake even. So what do you feel of these apps, these therapy apps for trying to help people over the phone and for people that don't particularly want to go out and see someone? Do you think they're still valuable resources?
If anything is helping any person with mental health or addiction, whatever it is, I think we utilize that. Yeah, I think it's important.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, and if we can build upon that as well. I don't think it has to be exclusive. I think it can be inclusive. And
you've also mentioned self-compassion and the role that can play and how vital that is. So what sort of role do you think self-compassion will play in transforming how we view mental health struggles?
If you look at the word compassion, compassion means relieving someone else's suffering. So it's very specific, you know. And if you look at people out there, on average, people can be very compassionate towards other people. You know, you walk around, you know, if you're on the tube, you can see people get up off their seats. I've seen people help people in the streets. I've seen lots of very good things. So it's quite easy for us to have compassion for others. However, having that same attitude towards ourselves is pretty challenging, you know. And the more an individual can be compassionate towards themselves, you know, that can support them to ask for help. You know, sometimes people have something going on, some sort of mental health condition, and they're like, you know, I've been told, suck it up, buttercup, so that's what I'm going to do. And I sit there and I think I need to do it by myself. But if I can have some self-compassion, say, look, you know what, something is going on for me. I'm not too sure what it is, and I think I need some support, you know. So if I need the support, I'm going to go out and ask for the support. And the more someone can do that, the more likely they are to actually move forward with their life, deal with the challenges, and, you know, do something good for themselves.
In your professional opinion, why do you think people are so hard on themselves?
Not always, but normally it's people's upbringings, you know, and it's not, I don't ever like to blame parents, you know. Parents do the best they can with what they have. You know, they work long hours, they want to provide for their kids. There are some parents out there who are not so nice. That happens with everyone out there. However, the vast majority of parents out there are trying to do the best that they can. And they push their kids, you know, and I'm not saying that's bad. You know, if you look at someone like Tiger Woods, if you look at people who are very successful, they've normally had people pushing them, which is good. It is good in a sense. However, with that pushing and being the best, there's a lot of this criticism, and this voice in the head is like, I've done A, B, C, D, but it's not enough. You need to do more. And I think that is part of the problem. It's a societal problem in a sense, but it normally comes from some sort of environment to begin with.
How can we encourage more people to think of mental health as something to invest in continuously, rather than just mention it every year when the Mental Health Awareness Day comes up?
Well, we need to do it consistently. You know, for instance, we did a webinar, I think a couple of months ago, me and Jagoda, on entrepreneurship of mental health. And it was actually one of the questions that the individual, one of the business owners asked. He said, you know, I advocate for mental health. And the issue that I have is some of my team members who are underneath me, they're not so keen on it. And he asked, you know, what could I do? And I said, it's pretty simple. You got to be that example. You have to be that example. As in, you speak about mental health. You educate people. You create awareness of why it's important. You know, and the thing is, the more people are aware about their mental health and how they can support themselves and get support, you know, they're not going to end up maybe down in the gutter someday, you know, getting divorced, you know, maybe drinking too much alcohol, doing drugs, a porn addiction, whatever the case may be, trying to cope with those mental health challenges that they have. So if you can nip it in the bud sooner rather than later, it's going to support you, and it will also support the economy. You know that there is a financial challenge when it comes to mental health. You know, I think in that when we did that, I can't remember how much it was, but it cost the economy like a lot of money. And if we can get some support, and by giving other people support, we're also creating jobs as well, which I think is a good thing, and people are giving back. And the thing is as well, you know, like I worked in a methadone clinic, for instance, for quite a while. And, you know, my clients were methadone, we were prescribing it to them. And the thing is, the idea behind methadone is that the clients are engaged. If they're not taking it long term, or short term, whatever that is, they're out there committing crime, doing other things. So there might be money spent on the clients, on the individuals. The hope is that if they are engaged, there's a good chance somewhere along the line that they'll want to possibly stop doing that, maybe go to treatment, and hopefully get abstinent, whatever that looks like. But they're still more productive than if they're just out there committing crime and doing other things. So we need to balance it out. I'm not saying it's not the only solution, but it's important that we invest time and money in individuals so their mental health can be alleviated, supported, and when the time is right, hopefully they will engage with some sort of service.
And how do you think individuals can integrate their mental health experiences into their identity that will empower them rather than make them think that there's something wrong with them, or that they're another level of, you know, society that they're just not as happy as everyone else?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you know, we can get a diagnosis as an identity, you know, or we can get a diagnosis as insight. So this is where I am in my life. You know, I have some mental health condition, I have anxiety, I might have some depression, whatever it is, and that's also telling me something about myself. You know, maybe I need to, you know, work on my resilience skills. You know, maybe I need to manage my time better because I get a bit overwhelmed when I do too many things. And if I can do that, that's a strength. That's something I can look forward to and move forward with. You know, cultivate that idea, that growth mindset. You know, the thing is, you know, especially with depression, it happens all the time. So it's a very real thing. You can really get stuck in your head as well. So there's something physiological, mentally going on for you. And then all of a sudden you'll sit there, you'll wake up, you're depressed, and then you'll start trying to fight it. You know, I'm trying to fight it now. I shouldn't be depressed. It's not fair. It's not okay. And what that does, it makes it worse. It really decreases your mood. It makes it you become a lot heavier. Instead of possibly, that is going on today. I'm going to accept it. And you know what? I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to do one thing. I might do the washing. I'm going to phone someone and create some agency, because the thing is, you know, we talk about sometimes, you know, we're speaking about the dialogue, you know, I'm a victim of my so-and-so. If you look at it that way, you will continue to be a victim. However, you have something, and I have some agency to still do something in spite of the way I feel, in spite of what's going on. And the more I can practice doing it, it's not easy. You know, we also speak about neuroplasticity in the brain. The more you can practice doing certain things, the more those parts of the brain that help you get and do stuff will keep on regenerating and support you moving forward with your mental health to mental well-being.
And what do you think is an overlooked benefit of actually getting help and support for your mental health? So the obvious ones would be, that someone can listen to me, and that I'm aware of what's going on in my own mind. But what's the benefit, just a normal, simple, everyday kind of benefit for people to get that help?
I think it's important that anyone I work with, myself included, I never feel sorry for anyone. I don't feel sorry for anyone. So I believe that people have agency. You can do stuff. Yeah. You might have, I've worked with individuals who've had very, very difficult upbringings. There's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of things going on. Do a lot of drugs, whatever, and they've sought out some support, sometimes belligerently, not really wanted it. And for whatever reason, they've done that, they've worked, you know, they've got support, you know, they have a program, whatever they're doing, and they've got a lot of benefits from that. You know, people, you know, someone I worked with was in the House of Lords doing a talk about something. You know, if you'd seen this individual 5-10 years ago, you wouldn't say that, you know. So there are a lot of benefits of people seeking support. And also, you got to remember that it's a collaboration, what I was saying earlier on. It's not just about one person, you know, come here and I'm going to fix you. I'm not going to fix you. We're going to support you, and together we're going to come up with some solutions to move yourself forward to where you want to go. Because I think this whole idea that one person is going to save another person is not very helpful. You know, it puts too much power in one person's hands, and it's not that case. It's always a collaboration. You know, and it does, you know, if you're in a really bad state, you know, using drugs, mental health, depressed, whatever, you probably think there's just no way out. I've done A, B, C, D, E. There is some hope, you know, but hope only happens if you put some action in whatever that looks like.
You've mentioned people using substances, or they get quite addicted to certain aspects like porn or behavioural kind of addiction, as well as alcohol, drugs.
Yes.
How do you think mental health and addiction or addiction recovery intersect in that way?
So they are very intertwined, and sometimes, you know, someone, like I remember I worked with the headmaster of school, and you know, he was very depressed, he was going through a divorce, things were difficult, and he used alcohol to medicate himself, to self-soothe, for instance. And what happened over a period of time, he became addicted to the substance and caused a lot of problems with him. So, and people with schizophrenia, for instance, anxiety, sometimes mood disorders as well, they'll use substances to self-regulate. And then it becomes very problematic, because you can go from having depression to having depression and an addiction. And that's why it's so important to treat depression at its underlying causes, whatever that looks like. It might be a physiological thing, or maybe trauma, or some experience that's happened, to support them moving forward so they don't start using substances to self-medicate or self-soothe. So they are very intertwined.
Yeah. And do you think that the mental health would affect the relapse process when someone does, for example, they go to rehab to get treated for their alcohol addiction, and then they come out and their mental health is faltering slightly? Do you think that kind of triggers the relapse process as well?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, if you've ever had depression, you know, it's not a very nice thing for individuals. You know, Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King, you know, in his book, he talks about having millions and millions of pounds in his bank accounts and being really depressed. And he said no amount of money could actually do anything. You know, he was really felt like he couldn't do anything. So the thing is, you know, if you have a lapse in your mental health, you know, if it's depression or you have a lot of anxiety, whatever that looks like, if you don't treat that, you will start thinking of alcohol or drugs or porn or whatever the case may be to get rid of those feelings. And the thing is, if you have depression, for instance, you feel depressed as it is, so you just think, well, I'm going to get high or drink some alcohol, I'll feel better for a period of time, and then what will happen is I'll just be depressed anyway. So what's the point? So if you have a mental health condition, it's important to treat it alongside with the addiction at a minimum, at a bare minimum.
And in terms of, you mentioned people getting high and then, you know, they deal with the depression afterwards. Most people get a come down after using these substances. Do you think that makes the depression worse, or is it just someone with depression or anxiety or sadness will just think, oh, it doesn't matter, it's all just one thing?
Alcohol is a natural depressant. So if you drink alcohol, you will be more depressed, period. You know, even if you don't have any mental health condition, people who drink alcohol on a regular basis, it suppresses the nervous system. It slows everything down. It affects, you know, dopamine levels in the brain. Because if you're drinking alcohol, you're getting external dopamine instead of it naturally. So when you stop drinking, the body needs more of that dopamine, so you go into some sort of physical withdrawal and also mental withdrawal as well. So it is important.
What What type of therapies do you think would benefit someone looking to seek help for both addiction and mental health? Because obviously there's a vast amount of therapies available. But if someone's looking to treat both simultaneously, as you said, it's important to make sure that they're both dealt with at the same time. What kind of therapies would you suggest?
There are a number of therapies that I found that work well with individuals, and it's really up to them to have a look and see. I think cognitive behavioral therapy as a base is very good. You know, just becoming aware of your thoughts and how your thoughts affect your feelings, for instance. You know, something that's come out of CBT, because CBT is very old, is dialectical behavioral therapy, and that's extremely good for people with mental health and addiction and personality disorders as well. Because what it does is it's based on 4 different principles, which is versus mindfulness, self-regulation. However, what it's about is about looking at your thoughts and your feelings, managing your emotions, and finding better ways of moving forward with what's going on. And also, they also look about improving yourself, improving your relationship with yourself, and also your relationship with others as well. So I think that's also very good. There's something called acceptance and commitment therapy, which I find very good with my clients as well. And I've used it myself. Yeah, so that's about looking at values. And despite the way I'm feeling, if someone is depressed or has some anxiety, I feel this way, but I look at the value and I behave towards that value, whatever that looks like. And what that does is that builds resilience for the individual. And also accepting things as they are. You know, they talk about radical acceptance also in DBT. It can be really supportive for an individual because there's nothing you can do. You accept and then you do something else about that. If you look at individuals who've had some sort of traumatic events, there's trauma-informed therapy, something which is somatic to do with the body, and also EMDR. EMDR is very good. What it does is it takes the emotional charge out of an experience that you've had, which has been traumatic, and it takes it out of that. So it becomes actually memory, it moves it into the long-term memory instead of it happening right here and now with an individual. Something also called internal family systems, which is very good. And what that does is that looks at different parts of you. So for instance, when someone has depression or anxiety or they have an addiction, they'll say like, I'm an addict, or I'm depressed, or I'm anxious. Instead of looking at it and saying, there's a part of me that is anxious. There's a part of me that is depressed. There's a part of me that wants to go use some sort of substance or some sort of behavior. Because if there's one part, there's also another part as well. And you can start strengthening those other parts that want the best for you.
What about the difference between group therapy and individual therapy?
Yes, so group therapy is also very good. What group therapy does, in my experience, because I've been a client and I've also facilitated lots of different groups, is it really supports the individual to see themselves within the whole. A lot of the time, people with mental health and addiction, it's very isolating. They'll sit there, they'll think, I'm the only person it's going to happening to. I feel so low, no one feels like this. Or they might have this addiction and they think, I'm the only person who has done these things or feels this way. And what group therapy does is it allows individuals to identify with each other and realize that they're not alone. And that really supports individuals moving forward, looking at themselves, seeing themselves in others, and supporting each other as well, which is also fundamental. Because, you know, if you have any sort of condition, whatever it looks like, it's important that you are part of some sort of group of some sort of mutual aid group. You know, it's fundamental actually. Because, you know, we can't do this by ourselves.
And how do you feel the family or loved one's role fits in? Because sometimes people find it difficult to speak those that are they're closest to, because out of embarrassment, out of fear, out of just wanting to hide away from the issue itself. How do you think the family or loved ones can support someone dealing with mental health issues or addiction issues?
Well, the family can take a stand for that individual. You know, they can broach it with them, do no compassionate dialogue. You know, see what's going on. You seem to be a little bit low, or you seem to be taking a substance, and it looks like it's getting out of hand. and support that individual in a loving and a boundaried way. So I think that's really important. You can do family therapy as well, which is very, very good as well. And you know, it's not an addiction, and mental health is not an individual problem. It is a family problem. It's part of the whole, actually. Everyone, it affects everyone. They say, I think the research was a person with an addiction, I think it affects 16 other people. So if you think of it affects them, if they stop using drugs and alcohol, what effect does that have positively on people and their surrounding environment? And also, I forgot to mention, for addiction, 12-step facilitation therapy is also very good. That's part of the community. They have principles that individuals look at and they follow, and yeah, they meet regularly to support each other move forward with their lives.
Do you think there are certain signs that a loved one or family member can pick up on if they have doubts, if they think, well, perhaps my son is depressed and is maybe using a bit too much alcohol? What sorts of signs are there before it becomes drastic that people can pick up on?
So there'll be a lot of isolation. They'll start to withdraw. They'll start to be dishonest, start to lie. And that'll either be for self-preservation, as in they're depressed, they feel embarrassed, they don't want to tell someone, or they want to drink a bit more alcohol. So that'll happen. They'll start to be probably a little bit moody. So you've got to look at it as a collective. You know, a little bit moody. They'll start moving away from their support structure, and that'll be part of the isolation. And they might be quite confrontational when you speak to them. Even if they have depression, you think they'll be, because the thing is that they don't want to admit that something's going on. So when you do it in a very loving, accepting way, you know, where support them, you know, so they know that they're not going to be judged and that they can get the right help that they need to move forward.
So what sort of strategies can you encourage or help or show people that can help them cope with this time of year?
So Christmas time. Yeah, so Christmas time is a challenging time. In my experience, personally and professionally, you know, we are sold a lot of things. You know, we have to love our family. We have to get along with our family. We have to, you know, get the best gifts. We have to do the best of this, the best of everything. And honestly, it's unrealistic. It really is. You know, so some things you can do. Have a plan. Have a plan. Yeah. So if you know you're going to be with your family and one or two of the members in your family can be a little bit triggery, maybe you don't hang out with them the whole time. Maybe you do 2 hours for lunch and then you take a break and then you come back, but look after yourself. Look and see what those triggers are during that time. You know, you might feel a little bit lonely. What can you do if you feel lonely? Who can you reach out for support? You know, if worst case scenario, go help someone else. Go volunteer somewhere. You know, there are some organizations out there, mutual aid, where they'll have like a Christmas dinner, for instance. Maybe get involved. If you need some professional support, look for the professional support, and really don't do it by yourself. That's the most important thing. You know, reach out for help, get some support. You know, what I find as well, during the Christmas season, there's no structure, and it can be very debilitating for individuals. Individuals will stay up late and watch movies. They'll get up late. They'll be a bit discombobulated with what day it is. Is it Christmas Day? Is it New Year's Day? What's going on? So within that holiday season, have some structure. You know, if you can, do some exercise, do some self-care, look after yourself.
And this idea of the perfect Christmas, perfect holiday experience, I mean, universally, it's quite a known thing. And even I've had my moments in the past where I think, oh, we're fighting on Christmas and it's Christmas. Why are we fighting on Christmas? I think, how can we as individuals make sure that the pressure of a perfect Christmas, whether people are suffering with anxiety, depression or addiction or not, how is that something, because everyone can relate, but it seems to be quite taboo to say, oh well, no, we had a great Christmas despite there being issues. Why is that? How can we negate that?
be honest.
Yeah.
Just accept it. Do you know what I mean? No one has a perfect family. That's a misconception. You know, we love our families, but sometimes they can annoy us. We love our friends, they can annoy us as well. We love our wives, husbands, partners, whatever it is, but they can also annoy us, you know? So just be realistic and be honest. And don't fall into the trap of it has to be perfect. There is no perfection. It doesn't exist. You know, the most important thing is to look after yourself. Look after yourself, whatever that means. You know, you don't have to people please and be with family for like hours at a time if it doesn't work. Why are you doing that to each other? You know, take it in little small steps and just be mature about it.
Christmas time can also be a time of for those that have experienced loss or trauma.
Yes.
And it can be a reminder or a trigger for those memories. So missing someone that's not there for that Christmas. So how can people honour their feelings, because they're rightful feelings of grief and trauma, but still finding those moments of peace and joy in the present?
It is a challenge. I have my own personal experience of this as well. You know, I lost my brother a long time ago, 30 years ago. And initially it was quite challenging, you know, and it still can be today, you know. So you know, from my own personal and professional experience, you know, accept what's going on. I feel sad today. I'm going to have moments where I feel sad. You know, honor, reflect on what's happened, you know, reflect on the year, you know, maybe the relationship you had with the loved one, and honor them somehow, you know. So what we used to do, we used to light a candle. Yeah, just a simple candle. That was the memory of my brother, you know, we used to have it there. And what is also very good is maybe make new traditions, some sort of new tradition, you know. So what we did after a period of time is we used to go out as a family and watch a movie. Yeah, so that was quite fun, you know, and then we'd have dinner afterwards, and then the next day we'd have like the Christmas, you know, and make something new, you know. It can be very easy to miss people and focus on that stuff. And I'm not saying don't do that, you know, because that's not acknowledging the feelings. But there are also good times you had with that individual. And I'm sure that they don't want to see you sad. I think they want to see you happy and joyful. And just remember that, you know, because it does change you in a sense. And there is some hope to move forward and through those really challenging times.
So obviously with the new year coming up, how do you think the discussion of mental health as a concept will evolve in the near future?
Well, I think AI is going to do something. I'm not too sure what it is. You know, I actually saw my cousin on the weekend. He lives in America, and he's a programmer, and he was just talking about it as well. And it's just interesting. So I think you spoke earlier about apps that can support individuals. So I think there will be a lot of that going on. You know, moving forward, the approach is moving towards holistic. There's going to be more of a holistic viewpoint of mental health. So instead of just looking at an individual who's had a negative experience, there's going to be looking at, you know, what biological things are going on. Is it because of a past experience that you have mental health challenges, or is it because of something physiological that's going on for you? There'll be more preventative measures, I think, you know, with technology. Hopefully we'll be able to pinpoint more the likelihood of why people get mental health, you know, and we can look at some preventive measures. And I think there's something about supporting families and more community-based organizations or ideas making themselves more transparent. You know, for instance, amongst the American Indians in the States, if an individual has schizophrenia, for instance, what they do is they all work with the individual. So the individual is part of the community. You know, they're around them all the time, they support them, and I think that is very beneficial for people. It's that connection, it's that they're important, they're valued, you know, we delight in them. You know, instead of sometimes, you know, you have this condition, we put you to one side, which I think has happened in the past, and that's not happening as much now. You know, so I think that's definitely the way it's going to move forward.
And we've touched upon therapies and premeditative, like kind of how to avoid getting into a rut, so to speak. But there's also antidepressants that people get
Yes.
that they get prescribed.
Yeah.
So they also have quite a bad rep as well, because I've heard people say, I've taken antidepressants and it really mellowed me out to the point where I felt nothing, and then they felt that was a danger in itself. So what's your professional opinion about antidepressants and prescription drugs overall to help combat depression, anxiety, and so on?
I mean, I think it's a very personal, choice. For mental health, for instance, there's a lot of, and do your own research. Everyone needs to do their own research. So they look at, sometimes vitamin B12 is very good, D3 as well for SAD, which is season affective disorder. And then there's medication, there's a lot of other different supplements that people can take. So I think it's a very personal choice. So if you've had no luck the first time, remember medication is quite broad, maybe have another go again, possibly. And also look at other ways of looking at your mental health. So something like mindfulness, which I didn't speak about earlier. Exercise is very important. Looking at being part of some sort of community. Looking at supplementation and medication, whatever that looks like. Make your own decisions. Be informed. Have a look and see. I remember I was working with a client, for instance, and they were set against the medication. So I'm like, well, this is what you want to do. Okay, if you're not going to do that, let's do something else. So we looked at some other stuff, and it was working-ish, and then he just decided to take it. And we did a bit of everything, actually, and it worked for him. And then some other people, like you said, sometimes they say it doesn't work. Well, don't give up. The most important thing is don't give up. Maybe go see your GP or psychiatrist, see what are the treatments they have available. Get informed and make a decision, and then make another decision, whatever that looks like. Yeah. So like I said, it's a very personal choice. Yeah.
What's another personal choice is also finding the right professional help for someone. So how do you feel UKAT can help those dealing with addiction and mental health simultaneously, and what sort of benefits could someone expect when they come to UKAT?
Well, we have a very good treatment system per se. It's not a system, but a treatment process. We've been doing it for a long time. We have very well trained therapists, support workers, social workers. People really care. From the top of the company all the way down. We are very innovative. We've used a lot of different treatment modalities to support the clients. We believe in a very community-orientated approach to supporting the individual, which I think is also very important. There's aftercare where people leave, and there are other facilities and services that they can access once they leave UKAT as well. And there's also there's Illumina. I was facilitated Illumina Day, and it was really lovely. I've been to a treatment center myself a number of years ago, and that was in South Africa, but we never had that. So when I sit in other people, I always think that is so nice. People have been in treatment together. They were talking. Some of them had done really well. Some of them had some bumps in the road, and they were all together as a unit, as a community. And I think that's what UKAT is really good, and they offer a really good service to individuals with mental health and addiction challenges.
You've also mentioned that you've been someone yourself that has received treatment and help, and you've had your own recovery process.
Yes.
How do you feel that helps you in the position you are now to help other people?
I think one thing it's given me is I have a lot of compassion for people. A lot of compassion for people, and I also believe that people are not victims. You might have been a victim maybe when you were a child, maybe even in your adulthood. However, today you can do something. I believe you can do something. I was really depressed for a long time. I was doing a lot of stupid things, and eventually, that time came when I was like, what, this is not working. I've got to do something different. And I reached out for help, and I had some agency, and people had told me, Lee, do this, Lee, do that. I was like, in the past. I listened to them. And by listening to them and putting some action in, things started to shift for me. So for me personally, you know, I believe there's always hope for individuals. I believe in compassion. I believe in action. And I believe that, you know, we can do it together. It's not an I thing. You know, so that's really hit home for myself.